Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 11th of March, 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, before I get into a few of the things that I wanted to go over today, I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about general, I guess, kind of like regulatory stuff, how governments are reacting to cryptocurrency, what I think the future of this industry is going to be in that regard, because it was something of a discussion that was happening in the Discord channel today that I caught a glimpse of. I think a lot more discussion happened that I haven't read through yet, but it was requested that I cover this on the refuel today. So I think I'm just going to talk a little bit about this. Now, I've got to preface this by saying I'm not an expert on these topics. I'm not an expert on politics in general, but I think that from everything that I've seen, I can pretty much form a coherent view on what I think the industry is going to see over the coming, I guess, years. So for starters, I want to say that I don't think any Western government is going to outright ban crypto or even go anywhere near as far as that. I think at this point in time, there have been kind of like pockets of harsh regulation here and there. Obviously, within the US, the SEC has been quite harsh in who they've regulated. They've been quite harsh in their stance on cryptocurrency. And they've also been scaring a lot of teams away from doing certain things due to non-existent, I guess, like guidance on things. That is very different to something being banned outright or to crypto being banned outright. And people always worry about these things and so what's stopping governments from banning crypto? They could do it straight away. There are centralized points of failure like centralized stablecoins and centralized exchanges and all that sort of stuff. And look, I've discussed this before. Centralized stablecoins are the path of least resistance for governments to go after and heavily regulate. They're already regulated to an extent, but they could be regulated a lot more, right? There could be, the government could require you to have KYC wallets in order to use these stablecoins, like USDC, for example. The government could require exchanges to KYC people's addresses to even withdraw to your wallet. And this is something that South Korea seems to want to implement, but they just had a change in kind of like leadership there. So I don't know if that's actually going to go ahead. But I think the overarching theme from the Western government front with crypto is that it makes a lot more sense for them to just kind of like regulate parts of it, and the parts of it that they think need to be regulated, or at least to appease kind of like the regulations that they're supposed to be putting in place, or that they kind of like feel they should be putting in place, and leave the rest of it to its own devices in order for innovation to bloom. And this is what kind of like Biden's executive order was about, was basically doing some kind of like research on this entire industry from all kind of, I guess, aspects of the regulators in order to better understand it so as not to over-regulate it. And as I've said last time, we have a very good opportunity here to educate these people and to make sure that they don't over-regulate this sort of stuff. Because whether you like it or not, guys, some form of regulation is coming, and there's already regulation in crypto, but it's going to get more and more kind of like burdensome with the regulation there. But the funny thing is, that's actually a good thing, because it just means that, governments don't ban something that they regulate. And I was also saying this in the Discord channel today. Think about the amount of money the government's going to, or is already making and stands to make from cryptocurrency tax revenue alone, right? I'm not talking about anything else, just the tax revenue, not the economic activity that can be spurred due to crypto, not all the efficiencies that can be had, not all the revolutionary technology that can be had, just the tax revenue. In the US alone, it'd have to be easily into tens of billions of dollars, right? If not hundreds of billions of dollars at this point in terms of cumulative tax revenue. Now, obviously, the US generates trillions of dollars of tax revenue a year, but this is kind of like a huge chunk of that. That actually registers. It's not some kind of like footnote. That begins to register. So that alone is reason enough for them not to ban it, because they're getting a lot of money out of it. So why would they ban it, right? And secondly, a lot of governments out there that, democratic governments, I mean, crypto speaks to democracy, right? Democratizing kind of like access to kind of like certain tools, making it fairer for everyone, making it so that people kind of like have a choice and have freedoms. That is the pillar of a lot of kind of like Western democracies out there. Whether it is in practice or not is another thing, but it is definitely what a lot of them kind of like pride themselves on, especially places like the US. So that to me is another reason. I think another big reason why they kind of like won't outright ban it is because the industry is already so big, right? Let's do a thought experiment here for a second. If the US government was to just outright ban crypto, and I mean literally, it's illegal to hold crypto, trade crypto, use any of the apps, use anything got to do with crypto, it's completely illegal, right? I mean, putting aside the fact that that's pretty much impossible to police, but let's just say they made it all legal. They would instantly put tens of thousands of people out of work, probably more than that, right? And they would instantly lose all that tax revenue, instantly lose all the economic activity that's being generated, and they would just cede that, I guess, kind of lead that the US has in the cryptocurrency space to other regions around the world, and it would be a very, very bad thing for them to do on all those fronts. So if you look at it from that perspective, it literally makes no sense. Like, you just got to look at the game theory of it. It makes zero sense for this to be banned. Like, as I said, the governments can already heavily regulate the points, like centralized stablecoins, the centralized exchanges, and they already are doing that. And that should be enough to satiate them. They don't need to get involved with all the on-chain stuff, just like it's impossible for them to regulate the internet, right? There are regulations in place on the internet in certain ways, but could you imagine the government going after everything going on the internet and trying to regulate every little part of it, or trying to police every little part of it, or ban it, or whatever? It's basically impossible. Look at what happened with piracy. They really went hard after piracy, and they haven't been able to stop it because it's just too, the technology just does not allow for this to happen. And that's exactly what we're building with crypto, with DeFi. We're making it so that finance is as unstoppable as information is in the world, right? Obviously, sending and receiving of information is very, very hard to stop in today's world. Like, you can cut off the internet from your country, you can try, but you can always reconnect because there's satellites now flying overhead and things like that. You can block them out, you can shoot them down, but still, it's very, very difficult to do. And the whole point of crypto is to make it just as difficult to stop people from doing whatever financial transactions they want to do, to stop people and make it hard for governments to kind of like seize your wealth or to take your money away from you, to freeze your accounts or anything like that. Basically, to make you a self-sovereign, bankless individual. That is kind of like a major point here, not just on the finance side, but also on your information as well. Obviously, with signing with Ethereum and digital identity and all that sort of stuff too. There, so I think those, putting that all together, the main themes to me are: it makes zero sense for governments to ban crypto if they actually care about generating more economic activity for their country, generating more tax revenue, and putting more people in work. Two, it's basically impossible to ban crypto. Like, yes, you can ban the fiat on-ramps and all that sort of stuff there, but the actual on-chain side of it is basically impossible to ban or outlaw or anything like that. Good luck controlling that, because at the end of the day, it's just bits and packets flying around on the internet, and you're going to have a very hard time trying to police that. So those are the two kind of like themes there. So whenever someone kind of like says to me, like, aren't you worried about governments banning crypto? I have zero worry about this, guys. Like, I pretty much think it's a 0% chance that it's going to happen. And by governments, I mean like Western governments. Obviously we've had the China bans crypto thing like a million times, but even that turns into a nothing burger over time. Like, they've banned Bitcoin how many times? Like 15, 20 times over the last 10 years. No, it doesn't seem that they're actually banning it. It just seems like there's a lot of disconnect between Chinese media and Western media, and things just get lost in translation there. Obviously, there was a big thing where they kind of like quote unquote like banned or outlawed Bitcoin mining, and that moved offshore. But that's the thing. Like, if one country bans something, that'll just move to another country. It's not like it's just going to go away, especially when there's money to be made here. So, but just governments in general, I'm talking about like kind of like Western governments that we're all used to. Obviously, most of you are probably in a Western government, whether that be in Europe or the US or even Australia, right, or Canada, or wherever else. You're definitely living under that. I can see that in my stats on my YouTube channel. So from that perspective, guys, like, I just don't think it's something to worry about. I really think that crypto is at this point in time too big to fail, too big to be controlled, too big to be banned. I think that we should only really be worried about the heavy regulation of centralized stablecoins, and potentially, I say it's potentially, and this is a low chance still, but potentially some governments basically doing what South Korea did and requiring users to KYC their Ethereum addresses before they can withdraw coins from an exchange to their own Ethereum address or to any other address on any other crypto network. Again, I think that's a low chance of that happening in the kind of like Western democracies. I think that from everything that I've seen on the regulatory front, besides the SEC, the US has been kind of good with it. Like, I can't think of anything off the top of my head where, besides what's happened with the SEC, where they've been actually harsh about things. And in Australia, where I am, it seems that policymakers and lawmakers and regulators, they're actually pretty open to this sort of stuff. And at that blockchain week that I spoke to you guys about last week, that I'm going to be attending and speaking at, they actually got a very heavy kind of presence from regulators, from government people there. And one of the people running it is part of that whole world. So I think these people are humans at the end of the day. They kind of like see the benefits of the technology. They're not some kind of like evil, I guess, lizard people trying to control our every move. Like, I don't buy into any of that stuff. And I just think that worrying about governments banning crypto is just not worth worrying about at the end of the day. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to leave it at that for now. I spoke about that for about 10 minutes. Hopefully that gives you kind of like my view of things and why I think that everything's going to be fine in that arena. But I am very curious to see what proper kind of like regulations and guidance shake out over the coming years, because it can still be bad, relatively bad. It's not going to be outright bans, but it could still be shitty, right? It could be kind of like restrictive. But that's why we have kind of like dialogues open with these kinds of things. We have organizations like Coin Center going to bat for us. That's how these kind of like things come together. It's not just some kind of like, the US isn't a dictatorship, for example, right? It's not like some person that's just goes, okay, well, this is happening with this, and this, and no one else can kind of like question them. That's not how it works in the US, guys. So, or in any kind of like civilized Western democracy. So, trust in the process. Obviously, governments are not perfect, right? I'm not defending governments here, but to think that they're going to outright ban this stuff, I don't know. I just don't think that's the right way to think about it. All right, so on to a tweet that I put out today. So I said today, I remember in early 2017, my friend and I were discussing what price we thought ETH would go to that year. It was $20 at the time. Our absolute moonshot was $100. Similarly, in 2018, we thought $600 was the absolute bottom. Moral of the story, don't try to predict tops and bottoms. So obviously, as you guys know, in 2017, ETH went to $1,400. Well, technically, first week of 2018, it was $1,400. And then in 2018, it went to $80 as the bottom there, and it didn't just stop at $600. I just wanted to make a quick note here is that I see a lot of people trying to time these tops and bottoms, trying to catch the falling knives, trying to buy in when it's like really frothy and trying to, pick the top and so they can sell and stuff like that. It's hard, guys. Like it's hard, if not impossible, to do that. And I was discussing this in the Discord channel the other day. You have to have your own strategy for buying in and getting out, right? No one else can kind of like give you your strategy, because at the end of the day, everyone's individual position when it comes to investing is unique. You have your own circumstances. You may not need the money. You may be able to hold something for 5 years without worrying about money at all. Maybe you have like a constant income coming in. You have a nice little nest egg that no matter what happens, you're fine. But then there are other people who overinvest and they need to get out, and they kind of like either panic sell because they need to get out, or they sell too early because they see some money that they've made and like, oh, I made some money. Let's get out now. So as I said, like everyone's situation is different. You can't just kind of like listen to me. I can't tell you kind of like what I did. I mean, some of you know what I did over the years with my investments. I was just long and strong, as they say, for basically the whole time. I didn't just invest in ETH. I invested in other things as well. And actually, the funniest thing with my case is that my biggest return on investment, both economically and socially, was investing in myself, investing in growing my presence, in educating, in making sure that I added a lot of value. And I've made more money from doing that than I had from investing on my own into like ETH and other things. So when you kind of like think about it like that as well, investing doesn't just involve putting money to something, sitting on it, and that's it. You can get involved in a lot of other ways as well. So I know a lot of you guys are newer to the ecosystem, still first cyclers, so you're still kind of like getting used to this sort of stuff. And obviously we're in a bear market right now, so this might be a bit scary, it might be a bit fearful for you, and maybe my bear shit posting doesn't help with that, but just you got to formulate your own strategy, guys. Your own buy-in and your own take profit strategy. If you don't ever plan to sell, then that's fine. It's pretty easy. Just buy in and that's it, right? But if you do plan to sell and you do want to take profits, I think it's always prudent to have a strategy and stick to it from early on. Don't just wait until the market gets hot again and then start formulating a strategy and being like, okay, well, if I make this much money or if this price gets here, I'm going to sell here. Don't do that. Do that when the markets are quiet, when you're more level-headed, when you're not kind of like affected by greed and FOMO and that sorts of stuff. I think that way you get to kind of formulate something that actually makes sense and that can actually be stuck to, because that's the one thing I think a lot of people make the mistake of, is that they don't stick to their plan. They get greedy, there's FOMO, and then they kind of like miss out there. So just wanted to kind of like give that piece of, I guess, like not investment advice, but just general kind of like my view on these sorts of things. All right, so 10 million ETH has now been deposited into the deposit contract. So for those of you who don't know what this is, the deposit contract is the smart contract on Ethereum that you send your ETH to in order for your ETH to be deposited, or I guess to be staked in the Beacon chain. So we've now crossed 10 million. I mentioned the other day that we had 10 million ETH on the Beacon chain. That included the staked ETH and the ETH that was accrued as kind of rewards. And now we have 10 million ETH staked on the Beacon chain as stake. So as 32 ETH per validator sort of thing. And this is awesome. I mean, 10 million, we're not even close to withdrawals being enabled. Withdrawals are at least another 9 months away, guys. And we're still going up. There's still people staking it. There's still people very confident in staking their ETH and wanting that kind of like ETH-denominated return, and also getting those tasty yield burgers that I talked about kind of yesterday with regards to being able to kind of like stack staking yield and get more yield on top of that as well. So very, very cool to see this. And obviously, as more ETH gets staked on the Beacon chain, the more secure it becomes, and the more validators we have, and once sharding is in place, the more scalability we have for layer 2. So very, very awesome to see that. So we have this thread here from Preston Van Loon today, who works at Prylabs, about the 10 million ETH being at stake. So he said, now that the Ethereum Beacon chain has over 10 million ETH at stake, while Prism is still the majority client, let's talk about how Prylabs handles this massive responsibility. So I recommend giving this thread a read. I always think it's good to hear from the client teams themselves. They, the people from the client teams, they're kind of quiet, I think. The core researchers and developers are kind of quiet. You really only hear about the main themes that I talk about, like the merge and sharding and the EIPs and stuff like that. But it's always good to hear directly from the source. So I just wanted to highlight this thread for you guys to go give it a read. And I think that, I've talked about client diversity a lot before. I think that the Prylabs team is acutely aware of the fact that their client's awesome, that's why so many people are using it, but they don't want it to be the supermajority for reasons I've outlined in the past. So I respect this. I really think that this makes like the core developers, I guess, stronger as a whole, in that they're competitive, I guess, because they want their clients to be the best, but they also realize that it's a team effort. It's not just, let's make Prism 100% of the network. Yeah, it's awesome. No, it's a team effort. It's kind of like building up that resiliency of the Beacon chain by having multiple clients or a multiple client architecture. So yeah, definitely go give this thread a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description for you. All right, so as I mentioned yesterday, Gitcoin Grants round 13 is now live, and I wanted to highlight one grant in particular from Trent Van Epsia, because this one has got to do with supporting new models for public goods. So you can see here, this is called Protocol Guild, and what it is, it's a curated split contract that gets dollars directly to individuals working on the core protocol. So as I said, guys, core protocol stuff, this is what we want to be funding. This is what we want to be rewarding, not just in dollars, but in ETH terms as well, making sure that these people are fully bought into the ecosystem, fully on board, fully aligned in every which way. So I just wanted to highlight this. This is in my Sasso's cart of love on Gitcoin as well. So you can use that cart in order to donate to, all the kind of like ones in there. But yeah, there's a description here about what Protocol Guild has been doing over the last 3 months. And you guys know about Trent Van Epps. I've talked about him a lot on the Refuel before. He works at the EF as an ecosystem person. He's pretty much in everything got to do with Ethereum core development. He's all across that sort of stuff there. But yeah, it seems that they've already raised $18,000 from 29 contributors, with $600 of matching funds coming. So very, very awesome to see that. It's funny. I wonder if someone did like a rather big donation here to get them to that $18,000 mark, because there's only, as I said, 29 contributors. And I'm just scrolling down the list here to see if there's kind of like anything here. Maybe I won't be able to find it live yet. I'm not going to bore you with that. But anyway, if you want to support Ethereum core developers, definitely go check out the Protocol Guild Gitcoin grant, which will be linked in the YouTube description below. All right, so some massive news out of Stripe today. So John Collison, co-founder of Stripe, announced that Stripe now supports crypto businesses, exchanges, on-ramps, wallets, and NFT marketplaces. Not just payments, but payouts, KYC and ID, verification, fraud prevention, and lots more. So it seems Stripe is going all in on crypto. Now, for those of you who don't know, Stripe is a payments processor. They are one of the biggest payments processors in the world. Definitely a kind of like $10 billion, more than $10 billion company, like multi-$10 billion company. So this is a very, very big deal. So from what I've seen, they support, and this is in partnership, I believe, with FTX, the exchange. So they currently support, I believe, a bunch of different kind of like assets in their kind of like in their payments infrastructure: BTC, USDC, ETH, and Solana. Of course, Solana because FTX is partnered here, and FTX is a big Solana backer. But they're not just stopping there, right? They're doing NFT marketplaces. They've got like a toolkit for crypto businesses to set things up. I mean, look at all the features here. This is a pretty big deal, guys, because Stripe, as I said, is not a small company. It is a Web2 company. It is a fintech company as we traditionally know it, but now they're integrating crypto and they're doing a full integration, not just like a little thing here and there, a full-blown integration. So if you want to learn more about this, you can go check out the website or links in the YouTube description. But I think, as I said, guys, like the funny thing is that there's someone at Stripe, I can't remember his name. I don't know if fudding crypto is the right term, but he's always got a bunch of threads about crypto and about how he's like bearish on it. And I'm pretty sure he's high up at Stripe. But as I've said to you guys before, crypto is inevitable. It doesn't matter what certain people's opinions of it are. We saw a lot of this at the NFT hate. It's just inevitable. It's going to happen whether people like it or not, because as I said, there's too much money to be made. There's too much money being made. There's too many opportunities for people to kind of like work on new things. There's too many cool things being kind of created and developed and worked on. There's a lot of kind of like integrations that can happen, sort of like what's happening with Stripe here. So I think that it doesn't matter how many haters crypto has, as long as kind of like the business opportunity is there, businesses are going to support it. And I'm very, very glad that Stripe has supported it here. Obviously, Shopify has an integration. They have their own kind of like way of doing things. They're obviously an e-commerce giant, but there's PayPal as well, which everyone seems to have forgotten about, by the way. But there was the PayPal integration, which was a huge deal at the time. MasterCard's working on layer 2 stuff. Visa's working on layer 2 stuff. They bought a crypto. I mean, all these kind of companies are getting involved. And you may be wondering, but Anthony, like these are centralized companies. Why do we care about them? And as I said before, crypto acts as a forcing function to basically get these centralized companies to use our rails. So right now, the centralized fintech companies are using the traditional finance rails, which are horrible, right? They're inefficient, they're shitty, they're decades old, no one cares. Like, it's so slow, no one wants to use them if they don't have to. So by forcing these companies to use the crypto rails, it basically starts the, I guess, slow transition over to for them leaving the old kind of like technology behind and adopting the new technology. Going as far as having Ethereum as that global settlement layer, and then building on top of that and kind of like having layer 2 stuff on there, side chains, all this sort of stuff going on. So yeah, anyway, cool to see this from Stripe. As I said, I'll link this in the YouTube description. You can go check it out for yourself. All right, so Galleon DAO has a new product out today called the ETHMAXY Yield Index, which is now live on the Ethereum mainnet. It is called ETHMAXY is the ticker, which is, I think, a pretty good ticker there. It is built using SEP protocols infrastructure. And of course, guys, disclosures here, I'm an investor in Galleon and I'm an advisor to SET. So obviously a bit of kind of skin in the game here. But yeah, this is just another way to earn a kind of like yield on your ETH. So the ETH, as we described here, the ETHMAXY Yield Index is a new structured product built natively on the Ethereum network to enable traders to gain 3 times leveraged staked ETH yield exposure via STETH through Lido and Aave. Obviously, as this is a leveraged staked ETH token, it carries extra risk here. But if you're the kind of person that likes risk, likes a tasty yield burger, well, then you can get that with this new product here. So right now, STETH, if STETH is paying 5% staking API, so this is how it kind of like gets calculated. So for example, if STETH, which is staked ETH Lido's token, is paying 5% staking APY, while the borrowing rate for ETH is less than 1%, ETHMAXY would be able to achieve 13 to 15% APY, the highest ETH APY rate seen in DeFi, whilst maintaining full composability and simplicity of a regular ERC20 token. And you can exit and enter a position using Uniswap. That's it there. So this is similar, I guess, to a product that I highlighted yesterday or the day before, the Rocket Pool one with the Curve Pool as well. And we're going to have to see where these APYs level out at. As I said, because it's early days for these products, they're a bit more lucrative than they will be in their solid state. And it depends on a wide range of kind of like factors here, of course. But I think the main one that we want to be kind of like concerned about is just what that APY lands at. It's obviously going to be variable. It's not going to be fixed. I mean, you can get fixed APYs through other kind of like applications and stuff like that, but this sort of stuff is just going to be variable. So if you're interested in earning more on your ETH and you're happy taking the risk on your staked ETH, then definitely go check out this blog post here to read more about the product and check out the ETH Max Yield Index, which, as I said, is live on Ethereum and now. All right, finally here, I have a team that I wanted to kind of like talk about and highlight that I am an investor in, have been for a little while now, but they haven't been as public lately. Now, this team is called BootNode, and they're celebrating their first birthday today. So what is BootNode? Well, it's basically a software engineering kind of like studio that does work for protocols in Ethereum, for example. Like what they'll do is they'll kind of like go out, they'll offer their services, like they're kind of like a dev workshop. They'll offer their kind of like services to application teams that kind of like need the extra help, whether that be on the kind of like development side with Solidity and things like that. And then they'll kind of like work with the team to be an early partner there. And kind of like it makes a lot of sense because there gets to be that kind of like separation there as well. And BootNode basically gets to be kind of, I guess, like a community member, so to speak, of the protocol. They're not part of the core team, but they get to kind of like be building it, and they get to kind of be rewarded for that as well with the alignment of incentives there. So I just wanted to highlight them because I think they're doing amazing work, guys. Like seriously, it's just... The thing is, like, a lot of this stuff you don't see in the foreground, but I see it in the background because I get updates from them. They have added, a lot of value to a lot of projects. They helped out Lyra a lot with kind of like their work there. Well, I believe they've helped out a bunch of other kind of like projects as well. I don't know which ones I'm allowed to talk about, which ones I'm not, sort of thing. But as I said, they're kind of mostly in the background working in stealth. But if you're a project that is interested in kind of like, getting BootNode on board to help you with these sorts of things, and you need this kind of like talent on board, definitely reach out to them. They're always kind of like happy to help there. But I just wanted to kind of like highlight them today because I think they're really cool. But as I said, I am a small investor. It is listed here in the thread anyway. But obviously, I have skin in the game there. But as you guys know, I only like to invest in things that I actually believe in, that actually has value and actually is a really cool thing. But yeah, I'll link this in the YouTube description. You can go check it out. Now, again, I have a few more minutes left here. I wanted to talk about one other thing. I know I talked a lot about the regulatory stuff at the start, but I wanted to talk about one other thing, and that's got to do with more of kind of like on the personal side of things. So you guys know I'm going to kind of like Amsterdam next month, and there's other conferences coming up and stuff like that. I want to know what you guys think about this. It's going to be hard for me to kind of like do the newsletter and do the refuel when I'm traveling, especially if I've got shitty internet. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to upload videos if the internet's really bad. But I want to get your opinion and comment in the Discord channel if you have opinions on this. Do you think that I should just do kind of just try to do kind of like episodes here and there when I'm traveling? Like, let's say I spend 2 weeks in Amsterdam. Do you think I should try to do episodes whenever I can, or do you think I should just save up the content and do like kind of like a mega episode of the refuel at maybe once a week while I'm traveling? So for those 2 weeks you would only have 2 episodes, but they would cover basically everything. I want to know what you guys think, because the funny thing is the refuel has only existed during COVID times. It hasn't existed when I've been able to travel. So I've never had this problem before. And I don't want to kind of like leave you guys hanging dry, because I know you love the updates and things like that. But thinking more about it, when I used to go to conferences, it was like get up in the morning, go, and don't get back until like midnight of the local time wherever I was. Be super tired, be super worn out, just hit the hay and get back at it the next day. So I really don't think I'm going to be able to do daily video updates and newsletters and stuff like that. I'm going to try my best to, but I think the better approach would be to kind of like just do the mega episodes and kind of like over time there. And with the newsletter, just do that when I kind of like can, or do it kind of like every few days or something like that. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Just comment in the Discord channel, tag me in there. I'll be sure to kind of like read those comments and everything. And you can DM me as well. That's fine. But just as I said, like Amsterdam's coming up in kind of like a month and a bit now. So definitely want to make sure that that you guys don't that I don't rug you guys and stuff like that. So I wanted to kind of like start the discussion now. But I think on that note, it's going to be it. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all next week. Thanks everyone.